Welcome to this week's episode of Superhost Down Under. This week we have Jodie on the show. Welcome, Jodie.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's nice to be
Welcome,
here.
Jodie.
Thank you, Silvia.
And you are the creator of Hospitable Hosts, a book series, and founder of Temporary Escapes. Before we get into your story, we're going to do our weekly topic. Silvia, what do we have?
Okay, it's about responsibility of damages. So, true story, as they all are. But so I have a friend who's a co-host, and she was working for a couple, and they called her at one stage and said, "There's a coffee stain under the couch on the carpet." So they said, the cleaner didn't do their job. Get the cleaner to come back and clean it and have the stain removed. So the cleaner came back, made every attempt to remove the stain, and it didn't come off. And then in her opinion, in the cleaner's opinion, the stain had been there a while, and that's partly why it wouldn't come out. So then they said to my friend, the co-host, all right, get Airbnb's AirCover to pay for it, to get it professionally cleaned. And she had to then explain to them that with AirCover, it has to be attached to a stay. You can't just claim damages. It has to be attached to a guest and their stay, and it was done during that stay. So as they didn't know when it was done, she couldn't really claim it through AirCover and pin any particular guest to it. Now, let me also step back and say that with this particular property, the hosts go away quite frequently. So it is actually their home, which they unblock the calendar when they go away. So, it's not only guest staying. Apparently there was one stage where their sister came to stay. So no one really knows who caused this coffee stain, how long it's been there. So when they realised they couldn't claim it from AirCover and they had to pay for the carpet being cleaned, they then expected my friend, the co-host, to subsidise the cost. And she just thought that was so unreasonable. And she'd already sort of found these hosts to be a bit unreasonable with her and very time consuming, because their place had all kinds of knickknacks and it was cluttered because it was their home. And even though from the beginning she said it's best not that it stays minimalistic, put your expensive things away, they didn't. And so then, if something went missing, they were always blaming her. So she'd just had enough. And then when they expected her to pay for part of the carpet cleaning, she just ended the working relationship. So in my opinion too, I felt it was unreasonable that they should ask her, especially as they weren't sure when it happened. Why was she expected to pay for it? I mean, to me, it seems like an expense of running the business. It's unfortunate that no one knew when it happened, but in the end, especially if you're having the entire carpet done, which you need to have done regularly, and the stain was under the couch. So the cleaners are not checking, under couches, behind beds. That's a deep clean, in my opinion. So I'm interested to hear your opinion, Jodie, and Ray's on this one, because I just felt it was unreasonable of the hosts.
Yeah, Jodie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, wow. There's so many little elements to that scenario, isn't there? So number one, must have been one heck of a coffee stain that they had to have it professionally cleaned, because there's some great products out there that you can clean. I think too, you have to really take into consideration who you're working with, not for your owners in this case. If an owner is going to be that picky over a coffee stain behind the sofa or underneath the sofa, then and you said that they were also difficult in dealing with. I think that's that's a rookie mistake, is when we first start, we want to take on all these owners, because we want
Yes,
to build our business, and you want to please
mm,
people, and you don't really have boundaries set. And then so you just like, yeah, take everybody, but then you start realizing,
exactly.
like, working with people and trying to showcase their property. And this one's even more complicated because it's their own home, not a holiday home, um, is really tricky. And I know myself, I learned that by trial and error as well. When I first started co-hosting for other people, or property management for other people, I I ran into that same situation. I had an owner who had the most beautiful property, and he had this, and he charged a lot of money for guests to stay there. He also used the property for his own use a lot of the time throughout the month. And he had two small dogs, and the two small dogs had peed all over this rug that was in the living room, and there was stains everywhere. So I can
Oh,
relate to this actually as we start talking. And yes, it wasn't coffee, it was dog pee, and it was really ooh.
oh,
And I said to him, "You're going to have to change that rug." Well, no, he just could not see it. And so we had a guest stay, and of course, a guest complained, and it's under my profile. And in the end, I just had to say to him, "Look, I cannot have you as a part of my range of properties, because you're not prepared to do what I need you to do for my ratings, really. Like, I don't want people staying at a property like that." So I think that that's another lesson learned there. As a co-host, you have to be picky. You have to build a relationship with these owners, and some owners are great, some are not so great. Um, and I think it's unnecessary for the co-host to pay for the charge, because there was nothing put in place really to say when that stain had taken place. Again, you're so right. AirCover will only cover something that is related to a booking. So if it had happened when one of their family members, or even when they stayed, that needs to be documented. But perhaps there needs to be, I know cleaners come in, or a housekeeping team come in, and they focus on the surface stuff that they see. But what I do ask my cleaners is, once they've finished cleaning a property, is just go outside for 5 minutes, have a bit of a break, a breathing break, I call it, and then walk into the property, and just have a look at it from a guest point of view. What can they see? Look up, look down, cobwebs, whatever, something that they may have missed, or even just alignment of furniture, and making sure that it's looking the best that it can. And I think that's when you could pick up a stain on the carpet. I know these
good
things
tip.
are easy miss. Not all of us. I don't have checkers, because I do put that responsibility onto my housekeeping team. But I know some people do have checkers, so maybe that could be on the checklist of the checkers, to make sure that the carpets are cleaned. Mm.
Mm,
So that's my 2 cents.
that's great. Thank you.
Mm.
I think that my thoughts are, like, as a co-host, like if I was the one running it, um, when you start the property, similar to when you rent a property, like, it's important to have that kind of start of the relationship baseline, like including an inventory of all the items that
Mhm.
you're offering to guests, the photos, so that you can go back, like if there were photos, maybe there are, then you can go back to what was the condition of the carpet when you took possession of it and start listing it. And if that stain's there, then the stain was there before. And then
Mm.
there's less back and forth about having to pay for something that was there before you took ownership of it. But I also agree that it's difficult sometimes, like, some opportunities are actually distractions.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of my time in consulting, where, like, some clients, like, will be your loudest clients, but you're not generating the most revenue from. But there are really distractions from growing your business or
Mhm.
earning a living. And similar to taking on hosts, like, I can think of several hosts that I would never want to manage their property, because they would undermine like my decisions on like pricing. They would they would probably accuse me if anything went wrong, or they would be just hypercritical of my decisions, and it would feel like being micromanaged while it's supposed to be autonomous. And I think those things are, it's like any other partnership. You're in a partnership because you're sharing your brand with someone. It's that your reputation on how you manage properties is shared, and if they're not willing to be part of that same vision, standards, then it actually will be detrimental to your review, because those guests who are unhappy for the neglected repairs, it'll show up on your reviews because you're the co-host. So I think it's important to be quite selective on it and have clear boundaries, and also document, because it's really hearsay when one party says it was already there and the other one says it wasn't there. There's no evidence. So Sylvia, were there any photos of the carpet when they first signed up to take on the property?
Well, the stain was under the couch. So you don't go
So
taking photos under the couch.
there's no photos there. I
No.
mean that's very difficult unless you're very, very. I mean, I know that when we do move in, move outs, like that's easier because when you sign a long-term lease, because it's usually unfurnished, and so like you're taking hundreds of photos of every little drawer and every nook and cranny to protect yourself against claims against your bond. So I think
And look, it could have well been a guest. Like we do.
it could have been.
We know how some guests are as well as owners. So they may have, spilled their cup of coffee and then turned it around, and then no one was the wiser. I've seen that with mattresses, where mattresses have been ruined and they just flip the mattress. But on a regular basis, we flip ours. So, and we know what's going on. So, but then you can't pinpoint it to that one particular stay. So I also think there's a great opportunity here to talk about like management fees or add-on fees that you add. And I know for every booking I add on $5 for a management fee, we call it, and that's like our little slush fund for damages that we can't put through through Airbnb. And so we've always got that little bit there. For the guests, they don't even question it. It can be classed as a management fee, booking fee, whatever you decide it is. But it comes directly to you rather than going, being the percentage being taken out by Airbnb or any of the other platforms, OTAs. And it's you have to, as you say, it's a part of doing business. Not everything. We can't account for absolutely everything in our profit and loss. So have a little slush fund. That's what I do.
Good tip.
I have a slush fund for what we call like amenities, but they're really things like it's the tea bags, it's like the soaps. Like here, after a few refills, you need to replace the bottles because like they get a little gunky. But also, I use the management fee to fund the key service, where they go to the convenience store or the partner nearby, because there's a fee to have that subscription. And it's difficult to make it part of the rate, because that means they're paying a lot for a check-in key if it's a part of the nightly fee. So it's a separate fixed fee to cover that. I can pay for a monthly clean. I can replenish all the shampoos and body wash bottles and cover the key drop off and not take it in my profits, because my co-host was talking to me about like sending me an invoice every month for the extras. And I'm like, this is not an extra. Like, just we have to price it into the business. It's a business for me. And if there's extra costs, we need to structure it so there's like a variable and a fixed fee that covers it. Otherwise, it's just a hobby. So I agree with you. The management fee is actually very handy to have that separate amount that you get directly to cover costs. So Jodie, I'm very curious to hear from you the lessons from your 5-star hotel experience and how
so many
those lessons.
so many, Ray. So many.
And how that experience shaped your approach to managing Airbnb property or like short-term rental property in general?
Yeah. Well, I've been a host for 10 years now. Like, it's a
Mm-hmm.
long time. So I've gone through the 7 year process because most people think after 7 years, it's like anything, 7 years is a cycle, whether I'm going to proceed or not. And I have. So I've been hosting now for 10 years. And you could say, like many of us in this industry, I'm an accidental host. So I do have a background in hotels, and I worked in hotels around the world, and I went to hotel management school here in Australia. And I'm what you call an extensive traveller. I like travelling, and I was living in Europe with my family at the time, and we went to the UK. We decided that our children had to knuckle down and do some formal education because we were homeschooling way before COVID and homeschooling became a thing. And so we rented a property in the countryside in the Cotswolds, which a lot of people from Australia love to come and visit. And it had a separate cottage on the land, and we wondered what we were going to do with that property. And we could have family over and they could stay in there. And then we thought, well, let's try this Airbnb thing. And that's how it all started. My children were my first team. We used to call it our slush fund for traveling. So everyone chipped in and everyone had their job to do. One of my sons cleaned the bathroom, one vacuumed, one helped me make the beds. And we used the money from that to go on holidays. And then it became so popular that we could then use that money to pay our entire rent for the two properties. So it was very successful. And then COVID hit, and I started looking around on the internet because I finally had time to stop and discover what was going on out there. And I didn't even know this world of short term rentals as it is even existed. So I found a guy on the internet called Sean Ruckovich. I don't know if you know him. He's in America, and he teaches people how to set up a short-term rental business using the arbitrage model, so a rent-to-rent model. So you rent a property, and then with the owner's permission, you rent it out through Airbnb or the other platforms. And it seemed too easy. So I was on a quest, and I started gathering properties under that model, and became very successful. And I just got one property after another, and here I am now at the moment with 15 properties, and 15 is enough for me. I'm not looking at scaling anymore. So I do it under the rental arbitrage model, and they're not co-hosted properties, but I do, on top of that, I have two properties that I help the owners manage their properties. So and they're all in the UK. So I run that from Australia. I've recently moved back over to Australia about a year ago, and so it has all its little issues, as you can imagine, being on the time zone. But I have a really great team, and after 10 years, I have developed the team, and they can work there for me. But I'm still very hands-on. Every night before I go to bed, I check my bookings, make sure everyone's got their codes coming in, ensure the housekeeping team are up to date, we've got the right stock. So it's not, I don't run it where I just have set it and forget it. I'm very much in my business, even though I'm on the other side of the world. So that's me. That's how I got started.
Is it your full-time business, full-time work?
It is. Yeah. I do that and something else which we'll get involved in the discussion. So it's one of my businesses, yes.
And at what point in building the portfolio was it significant enough for you to focus on it full-time? Or do you think that someone could, in a similar experience, leave full-time work?
I guess it depends on what you're bringing in anyway in your full-time work. At the time that I started, I was very fortunate. I had another business running, and I still do that as well. So I have a couple of businesses that I run. So Is it my full-time work? Yes, definitely, but there's other full-time work as well. And whoever is saying that they do it as a side hustle, that don't listen to them, because it's not. Dealing with people
Well,
and dealing in the business is not a side hustle. You know, it's all hands on deck. You need to do it right, especially in today's world. Maybe 10 years ago you could have done it as a side hustle, but it's getting more and more complex.
yeah,
Mm.
the reason why I ask is we interviewed some siblings who are starting their portfolio
Mm-hmm.
recently, and they are still ramping up their portfolio so that they could do a switch from their full-time jobs, like their
Mm-hmm.
salary jobs. And so I think for them, they're targeting to get to 30 properties by the end of the year so that both of them can leave their work. So like in my mind, just back of the envelope, like to get to 15 for
Yeah,
one person would be enough like income. I know that when I looked at it, there's not enough margin for me to do it like hands off, like to have a co-host and then still look for the deals. And
sure.
so just kind of some high level estimations on like how big of a portfolio does one need to like cover their living expenses or like
Mm.
substantial enough so that they can step away from their day job if they have a current day job. I
Yeah,
think like
I do get asked that question quite often, Ray.
yeah.
Yeah, I speak at conferences, and quite often afterwards, people will come up and ask me one on one, well, how do you make that viable? Only with 15 properties. And well, yes, it is a full-time job, but I do have other businesses. And because I'm not a regular co-host, as you would say, so I'm not just making the 20% of
Mhm.
earnings. I have the entire business. I run
Yeah.
it as the arbitrage model, and
Mhm.
that is obviously I get more than just being a co-host. So, but I'm also responsible for a lot more. I'm
Responsible for more.
responsible for paying the rents and the council tax and the utility bills and all of that. So, I think it just depends on what model that you're running your business on and what you're happy with and what else do you do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
Mm.
And if you
So
want to
you
scale, like scaling's hard, right? Scaling, getting more
mm,
properties, that can be difficult. And whether they're all across Australia in one location, like I'm in a little country town called Tetbury in the UK. It's actually where the king lives, Tetbury. And so we get a lot of visitors
mm,
from all around the world and lots of Australians. And so I think it really just depends on your market. Like 15 properties in one place plus two extras that I manage is totally enough for me. But I could
Yeah.
take over the whole town.
That sounds like have a
But
in,
monopoly.
then you need more
in,
cleaners, you need
Yeah.
more linen, you need more of everything. You need more toilet rolls, you need more cleaning products, you need more and more and more of everything. So it just depends
Yeah.
what you're happy with.
Well, it sounds like it's a very similar count to the siblings. Like they're targeting what 30 is like 15 each, and they're not co-hosts for others. Like they sign the leases, and then between the two, they divide and conquer the communications and the cleanings and stuff.
Fantastic.
So it sounds
Mm.
very similar. And then so you have the Tedbury Escapes, and then you have the book series Hospitable Hosts.
Hmm.
Tell us how that started.
Yeah, how did that start? So it's now 3.5 years ago,
Mhm.
when COVID, lockdowns and things were going on, and then we started opening up. I was living in the UK at the time, and conferences started happening, and people were going a bit crazy, wanting to meet people and talk to people and get back into real connections. And once I started to attend my first conferences, and I was like, wow, these people are just like me. Like they do what I do and they love it. And there was lots of sharing information. But for me, coming from a hospitality trained background, and I think the nature of the person that I am, it just became natural as a host. But when I was going to conferences and started hearing how other people got there, they were doctors, lawyers, they were teachers, nurses, people have had to pivot their lives in some way. Maybe there's been a death in the family, or they'd lost their job through redundancy, or even they didn't get invited back after COVID. They had to become opportunists and think of other ways that they could pull in an income. I was amazed at how all these people I was meeting had come into the industry through that path. And I just thought it would be really great to write a book and share these stories to inspire other people, because I was inspired with the things that I was hearing from them. And I do love the industry. I love dealing with the people most of the times. Let's be real here, right? I get calls at 3 a.m. in the morning and, that something's happened or the lockbox won't open or whatever, and I'm trying to fix that from the other side of the world. That can be difficult. But the overall, I do really, really enjoy it. And I love the industry's, still new and building and inspiring. So I reached out to people all across the world. I was talking on podcasts, and I don't know if you know the platform called Clubhouse.
Yes.
Yeah, so that became really popular.
Is it still around?
I don't know. I haven't been on it since.
I remember an American friend.
Yeah.
Like, you need to listen to this. And then I really didn't want to be in a virtual room with people I didn't know for a long period of time.
Yeah. No, it was great. Do you know about Clubhouse, Silvia?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah. So at first, when it first opened, you had to be invited by somebody who was already a member. And then it was almost like being in, how I describe it, it's almost like being in a big conference center with all of these different rooms. And and people were chatting in these rooms. So you got the facilitators, they were, say, on stage, and you were in the audience, and you could raise your hand and come to the stage and have conversations with people. And people were doing it like that you would never ever get in front of. It would cost thousands to be a part of their in-person conference, and all of a sudden these people were sharing their knowledge and inviting people up onto the stage. And that's how I got into this world. I was just poking around in there and thought, I wonder if anyone's in here talking about Airbnb. And I found this great room and connected with lots of people, and I pitched to them, would you like to be in a book? And people said yes. So the first book came out, and I had 40 authors in there, and a lot of them are some of the top people in the industry all across the world. They shared their story. It became a #1 bestseller. And then I had people asking me, are you going to do another book? So I did number 2, and at the first book I used a publisher in the US to help me through the process, because it is a process gathering 40 stories. And but for the second book I thought perhaps I could do this by myself, and so I opened a publishing company and I published the second book by myself. And that also was a big hit. And then lo and behold, number 3 came out. And then just recently, actually this year, on February the 14th, Valentine's Day, I published a couples edition. So these are couples who are working together in the industry. And boy, oh boy, there's some powerhouses there. And it was, when we had our meetings, it was like being in a couples therapy session, and just hearing how they balance between themselves, like life and families, children, partnerships, how some of them, Ray, had been able to build businesses up and then retire their spouse from their full-time job, and they came across into the world of short-term rentals as well. So that was really great and a very, very big success. And then we just launched a book on International Women's Day, which is called the STR Sisterhood, and it's women in the industry. Because I don't know if you know this statistic, but women make up 58% of the hosts in our industry. And we just wanted to give a bit of recognition to those wonderful, amazing women out there who, again, had come from all different walks of life. Maybe their husband had passed away, or they'd been through some sort of journey to get themselves there, but they were there. And we have people who have portfolios of 300 plus properties, and we have a lady who rents out the room in her house. So it's all different hosting stories. and they share how they juggle it all, basically. Silvia, as you know, and I know the guys do too. It's not all women as well, but just on as for International Women's Day, we thought it would be a great way to put some new faces forward in the industry. So yeah,
I'm always surprised looking at our analytics for this show, which I expected like um, more men to listen because it's like a technology thing. It's on like podcasts and YouTube is male dominated, but we're also on like Spotify. Is that we actually have more female listeners than male listeners on this podcast. And my other podcast that I run for entrepreneurship is the opposite. Like it's 80% men. So like continually since we started this podcast, more women listen to our episodes than men.
well, that
In
is
specifically in
interesting.
Airbnb, and so it's really interesting to hear your thoughts. And the other thing that's also we have similar views on is I also want to produce a book based on the stories of the guests that we've had around Australia to to share their stories, their profiles, but also showcase their properties. So I'll probably reach out to you like post
Yeah,
this
do.
you can guide us to our first coffee table book of like our
Yeah.
top stories of each year because I have all our material recorded already, and I would love to have a book of all the interesting memories and stories and properties that we've come across every year in the podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to help you with that, Ray.
That would be
Absolutely.
great.
Yeah, I don't just publish books in the short-term rental industry, although I have published some of the big names in the industry, their individual books. So they came into the multi-author book and got a taste of what it's like to be an author. And then they said, can you help me with publish my own book? So I do other books as well and
Wow.
also books outside the industry. So I love it. It's really interesting hearing people's stories and seeing them grow as well. Once a lot of people want to become published authors and they don't know how to do it, and so to make that process, I wouldn't say simple. I was going to say simple. It's not so simple, but to be able to guide them through the process. And as a
More clear.
multi-author book, all the authors get together and we support each other. And then like launch day is really special. And to see what it means to people to become a published author just keeps me going. It's worth the 16-hour days that I do sometimes.
It's
um,
on
to get the book out there into the world, and for them to be able to trust me to showcase themselves and their story. That for me is a real honor to be able to do that. And with being in the Hospitable Hosts book, the community that it built was really what blows me away. Everyone became very close. We see each other all around the world and at events, and being in a book also people see you as a person of authority. So for brand recognition, it's fantastic. I get asked quite often, who would you recommend for a podcast or a speaking gig? And I know people's backstory. So, I'm like, oh, you should speak to this person. They do this and this person does that. So that's been really helpful. And so then that's led me to more and more things. So last year in April last year, we put on our own summit. So we had a summit for short-term rental hosts, which is based purely on hospitality, because I think it is a focus of our industry that is not talked about enough. People talk about scaling, talk about room revenue management and all the other things, property investing, but they don't talk about hospitality enough. And so that's where I think I draw on my skills from hospitality management school and my experience. And so we did our first in-person event. We had a retreat afterwards. Then I held a virtual event at the end of last year, so we took the same content from the in-person event in Colorado, and in November we put it out to the world. So we had 600 people register for that. So that was great.
Wow.
And so it's just been building even more.
What?
Yeah.
What do you say are some of the gaps you see in short-term rental standards that like you were accustomed to in your like five-star hotel
Yeah.
management
Yeah.
experience?
So it's funny that you said the word standards, because already when you said what are some of the things that are missing, I was going to say standards. So yeah, there are a lot of hosts out there, millions of hosts, whether you're on Airbnb, Booking.com, or any of the other OTAs. Or even if you just list with your local real estate agent as having a property for a vacation, those real estate agents are hosts and they don't have the hospitality skills. So the standards is a really big thing, and that's actually the next thing that I have been working on, is creating a global standard for short-term rental hosts in terms of hospitality. So I've created a company called the Global Hospitality Collective, and this is a collective of hosts, property managers, and vendors who are all working together to level up the standards. And I decided to do that because I was attending a conference in Australia, and although I was a visitor myself, I'd only just returned for the conference. We had a lot of international people coming in, and they were staying in Sydney, and I would say 99% of them all had a problem with the short-term rental that they were staying in. One lady even turned up and it wasn't cleaned, which we all know that happens. Like, it happens, right? It's the way that you deal with it. The lady said to her, well, you're going to have to leave or you're going to have to clean it yourself. She
Oh,
just,
no.
I had the
yeah,
same one, yeah.
yeah, she had just jumped off a, I don't know, 14-hour flight, and how was she going to now find a place to stay? So she ended up, she's a host herself, so she ended up washing the sheets, cleaning it, and making it, preparing
Oh,
the property for herself. She didn't get
Yeah.
any discount either, by the way.
oh,
Did she ask for one?
Yes. So
Oh, that's really
the
incredible.
more and more stories, again, stories are everything. I heard
mm,
about this. I just thought something has to be done, and I think for advocacy for the industry as well, it's really important to showcase that the short term rental industry is a professional industry. And we do have our boards, our bodies here. Like we have Astra in Australia, which is doing amazing things for its members. And for those of you who are listening, I think you should jump on board to Astra. I don't get paid to say that, but I think they do wonderful things for the industry. There's a lot of property managers are involved, but I think if more hosts became involved, that's all gathering together and really leveling up. So the Yahoos or the Cowboys get left behind because they're the ones that drag down the industry. So what I've done, I've created let's call it a masterclass. It's more than a masterclass. It's a certification where hosts can go through and really level up their skills and become a part of a global body, really, to be able to showcase that they have these minimum standards in short-term rentals, but also allowing them to showcase their own uniqueness, because I believe that's why people stay in short-term rentals. So people who are going to stay at the Four Seasons, for instance, in Sydney, they expect the same level of service to go and stay in the Four Seasons in London. Now, I'm trying to create something that our guests will be able to come and stay with me in the UK and say, right, I want to stay somewhere in Australia. Who else has got these similar standards? There's Ray. Ray's a part of this organisation as well, and he's a certified host in hospitality. I'm going to get something similar from Ray. So it's also building this trust within our guests. We have the first direct booking platform, which there's no commissions, no nothing, where you can connect your own PMS. So if you're working with Guesty and I'm with Lodgify or Home Hero, you can connect your own PMS to this website. So slowly, that's all. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but we're launching in April, and I'm really super excited to that. So, Ray, when you asked me first off, is the hosting business my only business, or is that all I do? No, I do so much more. But it helps me. All these connections and all the work that I'm doing helps me in my own business, because I'm forever
Wow.
talking to hosts and hearing what they do and think, "Ooh, that sounds great. I'm going to do that as well. Why haven't I thought about that?" And just little things. I was helping someone the other day. We were talking about towels and linen, and she has sheets, like bath sheets. And I said, but bath sheets are so big, and when you're sending them out to the laundry, they can only get 10 in a machine, where if you use bath towels, they can get 20 in there. She said, but what do you do for people who have, like, they need something to tie up their hair? Silvia, like, you can't put a bath sheet on your head. It's this big clunky thing. So we came up with, and I don't even know why I hadn't thought about this myself, but the hair wraps, Silvia, that you get, the terry toweling
Yes.
hair wraps.
Yes.
I said, well, you could put them in your property. And I was like, why haven't I done that myself? So I got onto Amazon and I ordered 40 towel wraps, and now I have one of those in each property, and it's been a really big hit. So they get laundered just
Wow.
like the towel, but
Very good.
it saves on my laundry fee,
For
because
sure.
people are using two towels, one for their body and one for their hair. And these microfiber towels are, as you know, Sylvia, well, I don't know if you use them too, Ray, but
I do not. I don't even own a hair dryer.
they're so much better for your head. And, yeah, anyway. So it's all these conversations that lead us to better off our own business, as well as create other opportunities for more and more hosts. So please, I'd love to have an in-depth conversation with you. I don't know if it's going to happen in this episode, but about the collective and what we're trying to achieve there. So maybe you can like to be a part of it.
Yeah, the Global
Wow.
Hospitality Collective.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you hope to accomplish with it in the next several years?
I would love as many hosts and property managers as I can to sign up to the collective, and really filter out for the industry the professionals. As I said, I think it's really going to help with advocacy of our business. So if you love the business and want to do it right, with all the regulations that are coming into play, we need to be seen as a professional industry, and that's my dream. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll launch in April, and I have big numbers I want to get. At first, I want to get 1,000 in the first year, but it sounds big, but it's minuscule compared to how many hosts that are out there. And you don't just sign up and do a course; you become a part of a community, which we have regular education. We have these meetups, which we're going to actually be starting some around Australia as well. We have a conference going on in New York in September, which I'm putting together, and this all helps bring the professional people together, and also the vendors who are, let's say, compliant with lots of things going on in the world. Compliancy is a huge issue. Like, how do you, as a host, store your guests' information? We need to be all aware of all of this stuff, and to be professionals in the industry.
And in 2025, you won the Shorty's Award for Entrepreneur of the Year. Like, tell us
I did.
more about that.
I did. I wish I had it
Congratulations.
here. Thank you. Yes, thank you. The year before, I was nominated and shortlisted for 3 nominations for 3 categories. And last year it was 4 categories, and then I actually won. And it was very special, like super special, because I knew all the people in the category that I won. And I had no idea that it would actually come off. I was just sitting there enjoying the evening. It's it's a global recognition, which is held in London, and it was super special to be there and be around all my peers and people who have helped me. I couldn't have got there without a lot of help and support, and people share my vision. So to be able to actually win an award was really special, and obviously it did a lot for my profile afterwards. But being a rentalpreneur, as you can hear from the things that I have going on, I have many things going on. So yeah, it was very humbling. It was very, very nice that my peers in the industry had recognized what I'm doing, and what I continue further to do. So, and if for those of you who don't know about the shorties, just look it up on online, and you can also, put yourself forward. I didn't put myself forward, which makes it even better. I didn't put in an application. Someone put in an application for me, and yeah, it was really great. Mm.
And also with all your experience, like for a host listening, what are some things that they can implement, like simple things they can implement today or this month in their operations that you think are most impactful?
Yeah, I think the first thing is educate yourself. You're listening to this podcast now, so that's all a part of your education, which is fantastic. I've listened to a number of episodes of this podcast, and you have some really great people on, and people in the trenches who are doing their thing and sharing their knowledge. So that's great. But education is, I think, one big thing. When I was interviewing all the hosts to be a part of the book, it was very clear that they had all educated themselves. They dove into it very quickly and then realized, whoops, I need to educate myself. And we could all have a property, and Airbnb makes it so easy just to list a property. But to do it right, to get the reviews, you do need education, like you do with most things in life that we do. You need to educate yourself, invest in yourself. I work with a lot of Americans, and they are very
Confident.
they're very confident because they invest in themselves. Australians don't invest in themselves. People in the UK don't. They're all apologising for being trying to invest in themselves. But that is a really key thing, like culturally, that we need to address. Like, invest in yourself. See that you're doing a course or taking some time out to listen to a podcast or to buy a book to educate yourself is an investment in yourself, and in your business. And from there, you will learn many tips and get many ideas of how to grow your business and to run it in a way that is profitable.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point. Like, I used to travel for consulting every week, so I would go to the airport. And in Canada, the bookstores, the most popular shelf, that's the one you see when you walk into the little stand, the newsstand, are
Yes.
self-help books for personal development. And I noticed when I moved to Australia, that's not the case. Like, the books that you see first when you enter the shops at the airport that sell your lollies and your other things for the plane are not books for self-help. And then I realized culturally, at least in Canada, there's an infatuation with personal development and growth. Like,
Yes.
and I think that's part of our culture to like seek a lot of feedback, but also continually like invest in yourself. And it is something I noticed different between the countries.
Yeah, that's a very good observation, Ray. In Australia, I don't know if you've heard of the tall poppy syndrome. So you might want to look that up afterwards. And
no, I'm familiar.
you
Very
are
familiar.
familiar. Yeah. And I have seen that. I've seen that. Like, I have been to conferences all around the world. And in America, there are conferences that have 4,000 hosts and property managers. You wouldn't get that here because, one, the sheer volume of people is very different. But two, people just don't invest in themselves, or they see it as, oh, I can't do that. Like, how can I take time out of my business? But if you take 2 days out of your business to attend a conference or go to a meetup or meet other people, you will learn so much more than just being in your business. Like you need to step away from your business sometimes as an entrepreneur and learn from others or like educate yourself. And I don't think that's my big push is education. And find somebody or something that resonates with you, because it's not always going to be the same for everybody. Silvia might like listening to podcasts as she runs her business, and Ray, you might like to sit down with a book or attend a class, and depends how your brain works. Whether you're a visual, there's loads on YouTube, but also if you're going to find someone on YouTube, there's a lot of yahoos on YouTube. So find somebody who is reputable, like look into them, do your due diligence. Does that person who's boasting about making millions or 7 figures actually have a portfolio? Have they done it before? Because they're like anything. There are people out there claiming that they know everything and that they've done it. And I think for this industry, especially, to be able to learn from somebody who has done it and is doing it is worthwhile, because it changes all the time, right? Especially with regulations, and our guest expectations have changed throughout the 10 years that I've been doing it. People are now looking for a property around an experience rather than looking at the property and then finding something to do around the property. The data shows that that's what's happening. The data also shows that people are looking 2 weeks out rather than booking their holiday months and months in advance, because we don't know economically what's going on in the world. This uncertainty. Are we all good now for Australia? Are we going to be able to fly to Europe? Are we going to be able to fly to America? Who knows? So data is really important to look at of what's going on in the industry, and how we as hosts can again educate ourselves to be able to set the expectation for our guests correctly, so we get those 5-star reviews.
I find that people who do book, months, a year in advance, and I have bookings a year and a half in advance, some of them do end up cancelling, changing the dates. I mean, because it is hard to tell. There's so much unknown with the future, and we live in a very unpredictable world. So, yeah, I can see why there is this shift that you're talking about, that they're booking closer to the time.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming close to the end of the hour. For you, you've been on this journey for a while. What's some advice that you would give to your younger self when you first started, besides the education piece?
Yeah.
Or you can't do that.
Yeah, or 2 others. Okay, so you have to look at it as a business. It is a business at the end of the day, even though we enjoy doing what we do and we're creating memories for people. It is a business. So you have to look at it as a business. Don't be too afraid to say no to like the scenario at the beginning. You don't have to work with everybody. Set some boundaries. I think that's in all business. Don't be scared of reviews. I think that's a big thing for newbies. And I know for myself, like, we were super, super wanting to please everybody, and they didn't have a good stay, so I'd give them a refund or whatever it may be. That is not a profitable business. So don't be afraid of reviews. There's a lot of guests out there at the moment who will stay 2 weeks and then decide on the day before they're checking out that there's a problem, and so then they get a full refund. So don't be afraid to fight that as well, and call those people out. Leave a review, an appropriate review of that guest, so other hosts can see that that guest is behaving inappropriately. Call Airbnb and let them know. So and mistakes happen. And I always tell this story about a property that I had that the property, I presented it to two different guests, and nothing physically was different within that property except for one thing. And my properties are in the country, and it was the winter. And I had a guest call me, and she said, "We have a mouse infestation in here. There's mice everywhere." I was like, "There is? Oh my gosh." And luckily at the time I was still living over there. So I popped over there and I said, "Oh, tell me, what did you see?" And she said, "I saw a little mouse." Now, these are field mice in Australia, in the UK. They're like this big, teeny tiny. They're not the dirty big rats or like mice that we get, in flour and so on. These are little tiny country things, a little bit like our little marsupials in Australia. They come in, they find somewhere nice and warm to settle in for the winter. So she checked out, decided she couldn't stay. Anyway, we searched high and low for this mouse or mice, as she said, the infestation. And I did find this one little guy, and he was in the linen cupboard, and he pulled together a cushion, and he made a little nice house in there, and it was all very cozy. And he'd even got some sugar bags, and he had got them around the hole, and he was set for the winter. But obviously at night he came out and he was searching for food, perhaps. Anyway, I ended up catching this mice. There was one mice, and I ran him down to the fields, and I let him go, and I even took a bag of sugar so he had something to some creature comfort.
Keep him going.
Yeah, keep him going. And I came back to the property, and one of my sons was with me, and we had turned this house upside down looking for this infestation. We couldn't find anything except this one little guy. And then the next guests came, and they were early, and they were about 3 hours early. We had the door open, and they said to us, "Oh, can we check in early?" I said, "Yeah, you can, but you can see." And I said, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Our last guest has just checked out because they found a mouse running around, but we've caught the mouse." And they said, "Well, that doesn't matter. Like, we don't mind sharing with Mickey Mouse." And I just thought, wow, like, it just shows you can have the same thing, so you're the same offering, but you're dealing with different people. So the people who checked out, they were so uptight. She wanted a full refund. She'd stayed there for 7 nights because of this one tiny little mouse. And then the next people, they were happy to share the cottage with Mickey Mouse, as they said. So I guess the more, please everybody, don't take it so personally. Do your best, and that's all you can do.
Thank you very much for your time, Jodie.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for having me
Jodie.
here.
It's been fascinating.
It's
You're
nice
a powerhouse.
It's nice to be talking to other Australians and sharing my knowledge with Australians. So I'm well connected in other parts of the world, but not so much here. So thank you for the invitation to come on and share my knowledge with you all and your listeners.
Thank you.